Welcome to Apologetics and Prophecy, the official podcast of Calvary Solid Ground, a remnant church in Orangevale, California. I am Pastor Jed, and I will be your host as we bring you Bible studies and updates put through an apologetical and biblical lens to see just how close we are to the return of our Lord. Thank you for joining us today. Maranatha, everyone. I'm Pastor Jed. So glad that you could join us for this week's prophecy update. And before we get into the stories, I just want to give you a couple quick announcements. If you're somebody who's watching this show out of our area, or you might be in our area and don't attend our church, we do have a couple events that are coming up that you might be interested in. These will be available online. As far as Rumble and the website and app are concerned, but we don't know how far YouTube and Facebook will let us go, but if you can't be with us in person, you can definitely watch online, as they will be archived too on our website and app. But if you are in our area or you want to travel to our area, we are having two events that are coming up. The first one is April 20th, and we're going to have Lee Brainerd doing a special one-day conference with us on April 20th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Lunch will be provided for free. It's a free event. We're inviting you if you want to come, but what we do ask you is for this event and the next event, go to Calvary Solid Ground /events and go to our, or if you go to our website, just under Connect Events, you'll find the link there to register, because we have room for 150. We got about 50 from our church attending, so we have room for you to come. So if you want to come, just make sure you let us know so we know how many lunches to provide. It's going to be a real blessing. Lee will also stay with us on the 21st for Sunday for a special message on our regular Sunday service. And then 2 weeks to the day, and it only worked out that way because of scheduling, is Don Perkins. And he'll be with us on May 4th from 9 to 4 p.m. And of course, you're more than welcome to join us there too. And we're really looking forward to these guys. These are great events that we're having to minister to us. And these two guys I met in December, and they were, gracious enough to honor us with their presence at our church. And so we really felt like it would be great to have them come. And so we are. And so getting into today's prophecy, as I was going through the stories today, as I was yesterday, as I was putting together this prophecy update, one of the themes that I just could not get out of my mind was the fact that the world's dance with death. The world seems to be dancing with death. And there's this fascination with death, whether it's subconsciously or consciously or on purpose. We see this constant theme of the world. Things that used to shock us when it came to death and harm and destruction, it used to shock us. We used to do everything we can in our power to avoid it. But for some reason, the world has grown so desensitized to death that they're dancing with death. We need to remember a few things about where death started. Death was not God's idea. Many people forget that death was not God's idea. Death was a product of sin. Since by one man sin entered the world, and through sin death reigned on all people. It says in Romans chapter 5, verse 12, I believe. But we need to remember, though, that death wasn't God's idea, but we know who is using death to his advantage, and that is the devil. We remember when Jesus in John 8:44, he says, "You are of your father, the devil, and the desires of your father you want to do. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth because there is no truth in him. When he speaks a lie, he speaks from his own resources, and he is a liar and the father of it." He was a murderer from the beginning. Satan tempted Eve and brought death into the world. Now, we're responsible for our sins, but Satan is a murderer, and he's out to destroy people's lives. So as our society and culture continues to turn away from God, continues to find its path and does this dance with death, they're entering right into the trap of Satan, because Satan's desire is that you and I would die without the Lord. And so we see death reigning all over the world. And we have to remember, for us as Christians, in Romans 8:6, it says we're to be carnally minded as death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. So why do we want to make sure that we're focused on the Lord all the time? Is because to be carnally minded or worldly minded, as we'll see in these stories, always leads to death. The wages of sin is still death. Doesn't matter if Jesus redeemed you or forgave you. The consequences for your actions are still there. And the world that's turned its back on God, just as the Bible would say the last days would be like, we see this culture of death. We know this next verse is related to the covenant that Israel will make with the Antichrist. But I think we see that that feeling, that emotional feeling, this build up to it happening in our world today, as we'll see from the stories that we watch. And that's, of course, Isaiah 28:15, because you have said, we have made a covenant with death, and with Sheol, or the grave, we are in agreement. When the overflowing scourge passes through, it will not come to us. For we have made lies our refuge, and under falsehood we have hidden ourselves. People think that judgment's not coming, that dancing with death is not a big deal. There's no consequences for it. The world needs to understand that there is consequences for their actions. And we have to see that's the reason why God is coming to judge the world. And so with that said, let's get into some of our stories today. And of course, the first story, we have in case you're wondering, I got a little short video here to remind you that there is a culture of death, and that the United States is getting its leaders that we deserve for turning its back on God. And just to remind us, just to give us a reminder of who's in charge of our country, this should remind you and prepare you for the theme of today's stories.
Folks, we have come through pretty tough times, and I know we got a lot more to do. We had to stay off. We had to start off by vaccinating America. Trump stood flat-footed during that period of time before the pandemic.
So just a reminder, don't even need to get into the details of that. You know where that's coming from and where that's going. But getting into today's stories after that reminder, we have to remember there's still a war going on in Israel. And that war in Israel is not letting up. As we see here in this story, this is pretty much what's been going on this week. Hezbollah fires over 60 rockets at Israel. IDF holds drills to prepare for approaching war in Lebanon. It says terror group claims 11 attacks on Sunday, including heavy rocket salvos. The Lebanese terror group Hezbollah fired over 60 rockets at northern Israel on Sunday, while Israel Defense Forces announced it held a large logistics drill in preparation for a full-scale confrontation with the terror group, which seems to get even closer. Hezbollah claimed responsibility for at least 11 attacks on Sunday, including 2 barrages of over 30 rockets. The first rocket salvo of some 30 Grad rockets struck near an IDF air control base on Mount Meron, with footage on social media showing the impact of about 10 rockets in open areas near the base. So, but you can imagine, these people, they're bent on the death and destruction of Israel. Can you imagine what it's like living in that kind of atmosphere? Israel has a right to protect herself. Can you imagine if you were living in San Diego and this was happening over the border of Mexico? Here's a little video to give you an idea what it's like. So you get an idea about how those aren't fireworks. Those are missiles being fired one after the other into the northern area of Israel. So you can see that it's about ready to get hot and heavy over there, because the people that are against Israel are for death. They're for war. They're dancing with death because they don't care. They've been desensitized, and they don't have any knowledge of God in their mind at all. So what happens when you're not with God? The wages of sin is still death. Your dance with death will be revealed. And as we see the world getting darker and darker, it shouldn't surprise us that we see these things. Now, what are we doing over here in the United States? This next story right here, of course, is Schumer criticizes Netanyahu, calls for new election. I mean, they're talking about election interference all the time, but who are we doing? Because we don't like the leadership of a country, we call for new elections, right? Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer spoke on the Senate floor today and called for new elections in Israel, saying, "I believe a new election is the only way to allow for a healthy and open decision-making process about the future of Israel." He condemned Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's handling of the war in Gaza, stating Netanyahu has been too willing to tolerate the civilian toll in Gaza, which is pushing support for Israel worldwide to historic lows. Israel cannot survive if it becomes a pariah. And so, Schumer, he doesn't like the current democratically elected prime minister of Israel. So he goes to the Senate floor, excuse me, and goes and talks about how they need new elections in Israel. Like and even the liberal parties have come out and said, you know what, we're not a banana republic. We don't just bend to the whim of another country. We're not a dictatorship that's being told by another country who we should have in power. And they even said, hey, Benjamin Netanyahu was democratically elected by a free and fair election, in person, one-day election that they have there, that they can trust. And so that's what they have. And so nobody likes it, because it's not going the way that they want it to. But they're willing to side with the people that are the culture of death, the Hamas and Palestinians that want the death and destruction of Israel, but not even realizing they want a death and destruction of you, Schumer. They want to kill you. And so, but of course, we understand and know that war is coming. And it seems like nobody seems to care anymore. This next story shouldn't surprise us. Poland quietly confirms NATO troops are deployed in Ukraine. This is something we've been talking about for a while. It says the Discord leaks revealed last year that 97 NATO special operation troops were in Ukraine as of March 23rd. And remember that leak that came out last year that showed there was like all these different special forces all over the country? Because we know Ukraine is a CIA stronghold. It's been that way since the Cold War. And the CIA got bases there. They got all kinds of stuff there, and they need to protect their interests. And so, of course, they're going to have troops in there. But it says Polish Foreign Minister Radek Sikorski confirmed in comments on Friday that NATO troops are inside Ukraine, but would not name the countries who have personnel on the ground. NATO soldiers are present in Ukraine, and I would also like to thank the ambassadors of these countries who have taken that risk, he said at a conference commemorating Poland's 25th year as a NATO member. These countries know who they are, but I can't disclose them. Contrary to other politicians, I will not list those countries. But so we know this has been something that's been piling up, and we know that from other people that are in the know, saying that they're preparing for a spring offensive. So in the next couple months should be interesting to see what happens in Ukraine. We're trying to rush more weapons there to kind of keep the Cold War aspect of it going, just enough to keep Ukraine going, so they don't measure up, or they don't bring up a total defeat. But they are getting beat every time we send them weapons. They get a couple shots in, and then Russia just completely dismantles and destroys and causes havoc. But most of the money that's gone over there has been stolen by the oligarchs. It's a corrupt system over there. And unfortunately, there's a lot of innocent people in Ukraine that are suffering what? People's dance with death. This dance with death that this culture has, war, no big deal. Biden talks about like war is no big deal. And one thing I will say about Trump, went against the Pentagon war chiefs and warmongers over there and did not want to get us in any wars. And it caused a lot of strife between him and the Pentagon. And people like John Bolton, who's the walrus, the warmonger, who can't wait to get us into another war, is just totally hates Trump. He's a never Trumper now because Trump will not continue these cold wars and why do we like it? Because it brings in a lot of money. This dance with death is prosperous for the short term, but in the long term, it's very destructive and will bring about death because we've turned our back upon God. And so, but what do we have going on over here in our country? This is crazy right here. You're not going to like the video after the next couple stories you're going to see. But this first one is U.S. military teaches race is fictional, parents incapable of teaching children. So we've got this story here. It says an unclassified document for the U.S. Command and General Staff College in Fort Leavenworth, Arkansas, allegedly shows that mandatory training for U.S. military members includes teaching that race is fictional, that racism is engineered in education, economic systems, and current laws, and that parents are incapable of properly teaching their children about racism. A picture of the alleged training curriculum key concepts was shared Monday by Libs of TikTok on X, formerly Twitter. Mandatory training for military members teaches that America was founded on racism and parents are too ignorant and dumb to teach their children about it. Libs of TikTok wrote in an accompanying message. They think parents need to stay out of their kids' education and shouldn't have a say in what they learn. This is just crazy. This is showing you how woke our military has gotten, our culture has gotten. Parents aren't even, if you're a Christian parent and you're teaching Christian parent principles to your children, you're the enemy. You're the one who's wrong. And they're teaching military, they're training military, young minds that go in to protect our country, that go in there with good morals and good intentions, are being trained and being programmed and being basically brainwashed by this garbage and junk, and they're going to come out. And when they're told, hey, you need to go round up these Christians and put them in camps, don't you think they're going to comply? They've already been brainwashed. They're going to think you're the enemy. You're the racist. You're the people responsible for all this. We're going to lock you up. You have to understand these things are coming. The system of death that's going to reign during the tribulation period is being put in place. They're dancing with death, and it's not going to be pretty what the end outcome will be. And this other story shouldn't shock us either. This one right here, West Point changes mission statement, removing values, duty, honor, and country. It's just a sad situation here. It says, in a move to worry many that the venerable 2-century-old West Point is going woke, Superintendent Lieutenant General Steve Gilland announced Monday a change in the institution's mission statement. The phrase duty, honor, country is out, exchanged for an amorphous Army values. It just shows you how crazy this world is getting. I mean, they're taking away the things that make America great, that made our military great, which were values, which were, what did they say? The duty, honor, and for our country. Now we're no longer fighting for our country, because remember, our country was based on racism and it's systemic, and we need to destroy its foundation and build a new one. That's what they're teaching these people in the military, and now it's just Army values. And they try to defend, well, those are always part of Army values, so we're just, but that whoever defines the Army values, whoever's in charge, you have the Secretary of Defense, will choose military values depending on the administration that's in power, right? And so those values are fluid. And so, people are being brainwashed. And if you don't think so, I know you might get sick. This is hard to watch, but you need to watch this because this is the military that's about to go to war with NATO in Russia. Now, if you're not worried about America, you will be after this video. Trust me. Oh.
All too often, I hear leaders talk about providing everyone with dignity and respect like it's an aspirational goal. That's not good enough. Dignity and respect is the bare minimum. It's the floor of where we can be. We must set our sights higher and focus on intentional inclusivity because there are still far too many people out there, not just LGBTQ individuals, that feel marginalized, shut out, or discriminated against. So for all of you out there, I ask you to set out your symbols of pride, share your pronouns in your email, particularly if you're a person who doesn't think they need to. Initiate difficult conversations about racial and gender barriers, and share a bit of your vulnerability in a way that draws others in. You all have the power to take intentionally inclusive actions to ensure the multiple perspectives that we know make us stronger as we devise winning warfighting strategies get heard.
So if you don't use the proper pronouns in the military, you're disrespecting people like that. How would you like that person to be the leader of your command? Would you really feel safe going out on the battlefield with somebody like that is leading the charge? I don't know about you, but I am not too confident on any military action this country decides to get involved with. And so, but what are they doing though? This next story kind of shows you that they aren't trying to bring peace. They're not trying to find a way of getting out of war. There's no, there is no diplomacy going on right now to try to get us out of war. We're training our military these woke, crazy principles while we're preparing for a bigger war in the future. Because this story right here shows us it's a Pentagon's $6 billion plan for 1,000 AI piloted ghost fighter jets. And there's a sample picture of what they're talking about right there. 5 aerospace companies are bidding for the $6 billion contract to produce new unmanned aircraft for the Air Force. The planes will be AI piloted and will be able to perform dangerous maneuvers. Now, this is something we've been talking about. The military will throw out, a DARPA headline or an official, article in Popular Science that says that the military is looking into using AI for its military, to be able to be used in the military, as if they don't even have AI. This story here, that's the one thing about this story, is it shows us that not only do they already have the AI, but they're planning on using it to build 1,000 these jets that can outmaneuver human thought. So because it says here, I think there's right here, it says somewhere, the planes rely on artificial intelligence to fly autonomously and adapt to changing conditions in combat. One of the main new developers of flying software, it's called Shield AI. So they already have it because it says their technology helped uncrewed F-16s regularly beat some of the best Air Force pilots in simulated missions, allowing their planes to skim the ground at 600 miles an hour. So they've already got this thing called Shield AI that the military is already using. So they're not looking into ChatGPT-4. What the military has is way far advanced than that. They've been using it in unmanned planes for a while. People need to understand the F-35 is an AI-run plane. The pilots have been using their brains and been using things to fly planes for over 30 years. So don't tell me that they don't already have it. It says ground controllers could manage 10 of the drones at once, or they can be programmed to fly in swarms, overwhelming and confusing the enemy. The planes should also be cheaper than manned aircraft, as they are designed to be expendable, flying 1 or 2 missions before they are retired or destroyed, meaning they can be made with cheaper parts. You see that? It's crazy. That's where this world's going. But, you know, should we be worried about AI? Of course, this next story is the biggest duh of the day, right? Technocracy News tells us it begins. AI is being used to deceive voters, to disrupt elections worldwide. It's already being used. And I don't know if you saw a picture on Facebook of this AI-generated picture of Trump and Biden like having a campfire together with smiles on their face. And I could tell that it was computer generated, I know, but it was pretty good. I mean, it was pretty good. Can you imagine what the top secret ones are doing? The ones that we don't have visible to us can do. And that some of these nefarious players might have, which we know the deep state and the Luciferian elites have access to. So it says artificial intelligence is supercharging the threat of elections disinformation worldwide, making it easy for anyone with a smartphone and a devious imagination to create fake but convincing content aimed at voters. It marks a quantum leap from a few years ago when creating phony photos, videos, or audio clips required teams of people with time, technical skill, and money. Now, using free and low-cost generative artificial intelligence services from companies like Google and OpenAI, anyone can create high-quality deepfakes with just a simple text prompt. A wave of AI deepfakes tied to elections in Europe and Asia has coursed through social media for months, serving as a warning for more than 50 countries headed to the polls this year. See, what they're doing right now, and we talked about this, I think last year I did an update on this, is that they're already preparing for what will happen if Trump wins. See, if Trump wins another election, because remember, they tried the Russia thing. They know that won't work again. So they'll just say that it was an AI. We can't trust the election because the AI put out false information about Trump, which we know to be true because we know he's a racist. We know he's a criminal and he's an insurrectionist. We know that. So and the AI and the conservative media online, they've used AI to, you know, you already can see it, right? And, you know, they won't let him become president. They'll start some crazy thing that will lead to the death of many people because they don't care. They're dancing with death. They do not care about death. And, of course, we have some good news here. You're going to like this one. It's actually good news. We like to throw a good story in there every now and then, you know, but to show you that this is true, that they are already preparing what to do because they know what's happening in America. They can feel the swell, and just the polls aren't looking good for the left lunatics that are in power right now. So, and how do we know? Because look at this movie that just came out. It says Christian nationalism film ends theatrical run with only $60,464 in box office sales. If you didn't know about this, probably didn't hear about it. It was in your theater, probably nearby, maybe. It says the God and Country, The Rise of Christian Nationalism film ends theatrical run with only $60,464. Rob Reiner. Now, if you don't know who Rob Reiner is, he's a meathead from All in the Family. And of course, we discover that he was never a professional actor. He just played himself on that show. And so he's still a meathead, and he was then, and he still is now. It says this movie that he came out with, you know, I love it how these unsaved, non-Christian people want to tell us about our religion, tell us what the problem is with our actions. It's like, I mean, I understand that sometimes Christians do need to be rebuked, but this is ridiculous. This is God and Country, The Rise of Christian Nationalism has concluded its theatrical run, and to the surprise of all progressives and no conservatives, including me, It absolutely bombed, bringing in a mere $38,415 over an extended 4-day weekend and $60,464 in the 7 days it was in theaters. The film opened in 85 theaters, averaging $451 a theater over 4 days, which is incredibly low. Assuming it had at least one showing each day, and likely it had several, it brought in around $112 a day, or 10 people to spend a day. And I think it's got to be less than that. 10 people. That's only $11.20 a ticket. I think it was more than that, right? Or 10 people a day spread across however many showings. In comparison to John MacArthur's The Essential Church, which made $412,000 during its run, and of course a movie I wouldn't watch called Greg Locke's film about deliverance ministers and demons made over $2.5 million. We've written before about the film featuring the who's who of bad faith liberals, and of course a lot of these names you won't hear of, but the one that we'll bring up is called Russell Moore. If you don't know who Russell Moore is, he's a contributor sometimes to the Gospel Coalition. He's also part of the SBC, and he ran the ELCA division of SBA, and is one of the main characters responsible for taking SBA down the liberal rabbit hole that it's traveled. And it's bringing about a death of a movement of Christianity that was once conservative and fundamental. And it's unfortunate because, he's a liberal hack that we should never have nothing to do with. And he calls himself a Christian. And of course, it's trying to, basically tell us what our Christianity should be like. Like, you have no right voting for Trump, or going into schools and telling schools that they're doing awful things. It's funny. But anyway, but here's another big no-brainer. And we won't get too much into this, but it's something that I brought up last time. But this is the big no. Biden lied 30 times during State of the Union. Lied 30 times. Yeah, no duh, right? He lied 30 times. How do you know that Joe Biden's lying? His lips are moving. That's how you know. He's just a typical politician. He used to be the king when he had his wits about him, when he was vice president. Obama always sent him to these events when he needed somebody that could speak for an hour and say absolutely nothing. You can find videos of him going on for half an hour talking about an issue without bringing up anything. It's basically just nothing. But now he's saying things and trying to say facts, but they're all lies. And so we don't need to get into that. But let's hope you're not going to, one of those barbecue places tonight after this story. You might not like this one, but this is something that's going on in the world. A cannibal gang and its barbecue leader push Haiti into chaos. I don't know if you've heard about this week. There was a video that was on X and taken off, but it goes Haiti has descended into chaos and its prime minister has resigned. A gang leader, Jimmy, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, who projects himself as a revolutionary, has become the most powerful person in Haiti. This guy is known as Barbecue for burning people alive. How do you like to have a nickname like that? Haiti, a Caribbean country, has plunged into chaos due to gang warfare. The U.S. airlifted non-essential staff from its embassy, and the country has declared a state of emergency. On Tuesday, Prime Minister Ariel Henry, stranded outside the country, resigned. This comes after gangs attacked airports, police stations, and prisons. Thousands of jail inmates have fled too, and we'll find out where they're fleeing to. It's not good. It says Jimmy, popular as Barbecue or Barbecue, is the leader of the notorious G9 family. It's a gang and is now the most powerful man in Haiti, reports the New York Post. It is said that this guy, Jimmy, began being called Barbecue because of his penchant of burning people alive. Amid the rise of barbecue, a video has emerged that shows a member of a cannibal gang eating body parts. So we're not going to get into any more details about this, but what do we see? What do we see? there's been a big problem here in the United States. They just said that people from other gangs have fled. Where have they fled to? Well, you could probably guess, and that is Florida border agents placed on high alert for refugees following breakdown of order in Haiti. So we see that, they're on high alert. It says border agents in Miami have been told to prepare for a wave of migration from Haiti following the takeover of the country by bloodthirsty gangs, the Post has learned. An internal agency email leaked to the Post pointed out that it is unlikely Haitians who take to the sea and enter Florida illegally will be repatriated back to their home country given its instability. One landing will cripple the station and our ability to respond to other traffic, the email to agents read. Roughly 1,500 people have been internally displaced in recent days to the gang takeover of the country, according to the UN. And we know exactly what's going to happen. We know they're coming here, and we're probably going to fly them here. That's what we did with the people in Gaza. And we just found out 320,000 people brought into our country. They won't tell us where or who they are, for protection. But we already know. We've followed the flights. And so I bet you we can follow the flight. I bet you Monkey right now can follow some flights from Haiti to the United States that show up in the midair and all of a sudden land in the United States from somewhere in the Caribbean. And we know where they're coming from. So it shouldn't surprise us at all. But what do we see on a global scene now? Do we see death? We got these people here eating people alive and coming over here to this country, showing us this dancing with death that culture and the world is doing. What about globally? Well, we have this story from Macron, who is the leader of France. He leads a celebration of constitutional right to abortion at unprecedented ceremony in Paris. So he throws this big ceremony in Paris. The French president glowingly proclaimed at a public signing event the guaranteed right to an abortion is now the law of the land. For the first time in French history, a public ceremony was organized Friday to solemnize the inscription of a new amendment in the Constitution. So they've never done this before. Forget about freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom freedom, period. We're going to celebrate the freedom to murder babies. That's what they're doing right here. And so it's pretty sad here that Macron would take this step. And it's just disgusting, and we won't talk about it. But it shouldn't surprise us, because what's Macron also doing? You think that it would end with abortion? No, it doesn't. Check out this next story. It says Macron backs end-of-life bill, aims for parliament debate in May. You can see right here, it says, President Emmanuel Macron said on Sunday for the first time that he backed a new end-of-life legislation that would allow what he called help to die, and wanted his government to put forward a draft bill to Parliament in May. Now, we understand that this is already, in Canada, they already have this. And so now France and Macron, we have to remember, though, these leaders like Macron and Trudeau, they were part of Klaus Schwab's, young global leaders school that were training people. And which shouldn't surprise us that this death culture, this death cult, the World Economic Forum, these Luciferian elites that believe that the problem on this planet is that you and I are alive. They believe that population is the problem that's destroying Mother Earth. And less of you is better for the planet. And so killing babies is fine, but it doesn't end there. What about these useless eaters, these old people that are taking up too much of our finances and space and time to take care of? Wouldn't it be easier if we just ended their life? And they already do this in Canada. If you want to kill yourself, they'll send you a packet in the mail. That way you don't have to go out and catch COVID on your way out the door and get your stuff in the mail and just choose to end your life. You can do it for depression, for all kinds of things. Kids, youth are allowed to do it in Canada, and now France is going that way. But, what about those of us that would say that's wrong? What about people in Canada that now are living under this stuff that France is now following footstep under? What will happen to them? Well, this law right here shouldn't surprise us at all. Canadian law endorsed by Trudeau government could imprison people for life for speech crimes. And of course, they're selling it at like, well, we're trying to get rid of hate speech online, like people that would promote genocide, you know, or try to acts of violence. But it's really undetermined. It says, introduced late last month, the Online Harms Act, or Bill C, Canadian Bill 63, would allow judges to imprison adults for life if they advocate for genocide. A Canadian law that aims to make social media platforms safer is getting flack for what some decry is government overreach. Introduced last month, the Online Harms Act, or Bill C-63, would allow judges to imprison adults for life. The law would also allow for provincial judges to impose house arrest and a fine if there were reasonable grounds to believe a defendant will commit an offense. See, thought police now, right? A provision Wall Street Journal columnist Michael Taub likens to the 2002 film The Minority Report. Margaret Atwood, author of The Handmaid's Tale, has criticized the bill as Orwellian. So, no duh, we expect that to happen. Well, you know, this is a local story, but it was picked up by California Family Council, and we'll have a local story from the area. Well, it's south, about 20 miles from where I live, in the same county. But also we're going to see it. This is on a statewide and nationwide blog, and then we're going to look at another nationwide blog story on it. And this is that parents publicly expose secret elementary LGBTQ clubs in Elk Grove. Elk Grove is south of us. I don't get down there much, but it's happening in our area too. The San Juan Unified School District has the woke teaching and these homosexual clubs. It's happening up north in Rockland, and it says parents at a California elementary school were alarmed in January after discovering a third grade teacher was allowed to personally invite all the third through sixth grade classes to a new LGBTQ club he was starting. The UBU Club, as he called it, was for boys who crush on boys and girls who crush on girls. But anyone could come, the kids were told. Yet parents weren't told anything about the club. No notification in the school newsletter or no permission slips were required for attendance, despite one being necessary to belong to the school's garden club. So you had to belong to that's kind of weird. You had to be part of the garden club to get in. That doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, within days of finding out, this is great, 30 upset parents. Why only 30? That's a big school district. You would think more than 30. But it's because of our culture. It doesn't care about kids' life, doesn't care about their well-being, doesn't care about anything but death. It shows you where things are going. There is a remnant. There is a few. There are those of us that will stand up and make a voice that say this is wrong. But this next story should tell us why this is happening, because there's a bunch of money going out to these schools to promote these things. And we found this story right here in Liberty Sentinel. Liberty Sentinel says that California schools give taxpayer cash to children for far-left activism. So if you didn't think the woke thing was going crazy, but they're paying kids to be woke. It says here, government schools in California are offering children large sums of taxpayer money to become social justice warriors through a far-left extremist group that has been accused of anti-Semitism, sparking alarm among critics about how education has become a cover for indoctrinating students and turning them into revolutionaries. The explosive scandal, first reported by the Free Press last week, was revealed thanks to contracts showing that Long Beach Unified School District, this is one school district, gave $2 million to Californians for Justice. The funding was used to offer $1,400 in stipends to about 100 children in exchange for becoming radical activists. Other districts in the state are also involved. So they're giving money to kids. Here, we'll pay you to push this woke garbage. And it's just crazy. On its Instagram page, it says it promotes everything from transgenderism and racial hate to removing Jews from the Holy Land. In a recent video posted by the organization, a student is asked why others should join Californians for Justice. The response is telling you get paid. Good. Apparently, proper grammar is not needed for social justice leadership because he said you get paid good instead of well. You get it? Oh, this is crazy. This is really crazy. And then this last story today is showing you that all of this is leading to a culture of death. It's the world that has rejected Christ, that has rejected the world, is dancing with death. It's all around us, you guys. And that's why we're seeing more demonic presence in the world today, because the world has rejected God, and its only path is death. There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end thereof is death. That is always the truth. That is a standard that the Bible teaches that has never changed since the fall of man, and will continue. And as we see the entire globe of the United States falling into this culture of death, and these things that we were just talking about, this last story is a big duh, and that is doctors admit link between transgender hormone therapy and cancer in leaked emails. So we know that it leads to death. This is their way of allowing things to go in the name of your freedom and your rights and your ability to do whatever you want, is leading to population control. And so it shouldn't surprise us these things are happening. And so, but for us, before we leave today, this was our last story, we want to leave you today with some hope, to let you know that you do not have to be part of this global dance with death. You do not have to be part of this government of death that will ultimately lead to the ultimate murderer, that is Satan himself, in the form of the Antichrist. There is a way out of death, and that is through faith in Jesus Christ. And we need to remember what the scripture says in John 10:10. It says, the thief does not come except to steal and to kill and to destroy, to murder. I have come that they may have life and that they may have it more abundantly. God did not want you or I or this world to fall into the trap of the devil. He understands that it was the temptation of the devil that led to the fall of man, and ultimately led to us dying, just like he promised would happen if we ate of the fruit that we were forbidden to eat. And now death is passed to all man. And if we do not put our faith and trust in him, in what he did for us to allow us to have life, there's only one place for us, and that is death. And so the enemy has come to steal and to kill and destroy, but Jesus has come that we may have life, and not only life, but have it more abundantly. John 5:24 says, most assuredly I say to you, he who hears my word and believes in him who sent me has everlasting life, and shall not come into judgment, but has passed from death into life. Death into life. That if you do not have to be part of this system that this world is dancing with, that you can put your faith and trust in Christ. You can believe that he rose again from the dead, that he died for your sins on the cross, and that you will have life. And you will pass from this world of death, this death march that the world is on, that they're dancing with, and be brought into the world of life and abundant life. And the thing is, though, the choice is up to you. When Moses was talking to the new generation that was going into the promised land, he told them, I call heaven and earth as witness today against you that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that both you and your descendants may live. There is a way of death and there is a way of life. And it's really a choice that you make. This world system is going to be judged, is being judged not because of their actions, but because they have rejected the hope that God has provided for them through the finished work of Jesus Christ on the cross. Jesus died so that we can live. And that choice is available to all. You are going to hell because of your choices, because you choose to follow the dance of death that this world is doing. But for you and I, if we put our faith and trust in Christ, who defeated death for us, we will have life. We choose life. It is a choice that you have to make. Please choose today. Make sure that you have chosen the only path to life, and that is through a relationship with Jesus Christ, putting your faith and trust in Him and following Him and passing from that world that's dancing with death into a world of abundant life that's provided to you through a relationship with Christ. And for you and I, as we see these things happening, Lord, it is just another sign, another reason for us to look up and know that our redemption draws near, because Jesus is coming again very soon. And we need to be prepared. We need to be a bride that's ready, and also an urgency to make sure as many people that we know that do not know Jesus come to know Him, so they're not left behind for the real dance with death, the dance with the Antichrist, the dance with Satan himself that's coming. And so just be about the Father's business. Keep looking up, because He's coming again. And remember, Maranatha. If you have been blessed by this podcast, please subscribe and share to help get the word out in these last days. If you'd like more information or to contact us, please go to calvarysolidground.com. God bless you, and see you next time on Apologetics and Prophecy.